The Companies Act 2016 stipulates that a company must be registered with the Companies Commission of Malaysia, the regulatory body of companies, in order to engage in any business activity. Hello everyone, my name is Wong Yieng, the moderator of today's talk. In the following discussion, our four speakers will focus on the process of incorporating a company in Malaysia in respect of the procedures and the law governing it, as well as the characteristics of a company that make it a good choice for a businessman to start their business.
Thank you, Ms. Wong. I'm Ho Kaiman. I will now explain a few characteristics of a company that make it a good choice for businessmen to start their business. Firstly, separate legal personality and the limited liability of its members. For a separate legal personality, the company form is a legal separate entity and distinct from its member. It may contract, sue, and be sued in its own name. It enables the company to continue its business without having to be closed down when there are any changes in its membership. Whereas for limited liability, it is also another major advantage of corporation. The company, as a separate entity, when incur any debts and obligations, is the company funds that used to fulfill any financial obligations, and the members are not liable for its debt. For example, in the case of Solomon against Solomon, a limited liability company has a separate legal entity from its shareholders. Thus, shareholders cannot be held responsible for the debt and liabilities of the company. Secondly, is regarding the transferability of shares. The advantage of this characteristic is that members may sell his shares in the open market and get back his money without affecting the capital structure of the company. Thus, this makes investment in companies more attractive than a partnership. The third characteristic is the perpetual existence of a company. It means that life of a company does not depend upon the death, insolvency, or retirement of any shareholders. They may die, or they may transfer their shares, or there may be new shareholders, but these do not disturb the existence of a company. It goes on as normal. The last characteristic is that a company has full capacity to carry on activity like to acquire, own, hold, develop, or dispose of any property. That's all regarding the characteristic of the company. I shall pass the floor to our next presenter, Ms. ASYIQIN. Thank you.
Hi, my name is NURUL HEDZIR, and I'll be elaborating on the different types of companies. In Malaysia, the companies can be divided into two categories, the first being the limited and unlimited liability company, whereby the second category is the public and private company. For limited companies, according to Section 10, subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2016, a company may be incorporated as a company limited by share, whereby the liability of its members is limited to the amount of unpaid shares. Under these sections, it can be a public or a private company. Next, a company limited by guarantee. This means that the company is limited to the amount promised by the member, where he is responsible to contribute in the event if the company is wound up. For example, the repayment guarantee of a company's debt. In the event of default by the company, the creditor may demand payment from the guarantors. Moving on, an unlimited company is one where the member is liable for all the debts in the company as there is no limit placed on his liability. This type of company usually ends with syndren or SDN at the end of the word, indicating personal liability under this section. This may either be a public or a private company. The second category is public and private companies. For private company, the conditions that are required include the company must be limited by shares. It has not more than 50 shareholders. Thirdly, it restricts the right to transfer its shares. Besides, it cannot offer its shares and debenture to the public. It also cannot invite people to deposit money with the company. With a sole member. According to Section 9, subsection B, a company may be incorporated with just one member. This is newly introduced under the Companies Act 2016. It offers flexibility to open businesses in Malaysia, especially for small businesses. Lastly, we're going to talk about public company, whereby it must have all of these following characteristics, whereby it can be a company limited by shares or guarantee or unlimited. It can have more than 50 shareholders. There is no need to restrict the transfer of its shares. It can offer its shares or debentures to the public. It can allot shares or debentures with a view of offering them to the public. And lastly, it can invite the public to deposit money to the company.
Thank you, Ms. ASYIQIN. Hello, everyone. I'm Yieng. With regard to the pre-incorporation, generally, a company can only enter into a contract in its own stand after its incorporation. However, due to the benefits of the company, the promoter may like to enter into a pre-incorporation contract which is entered on behalf of the company before its incorporation. It is clearly stated in Section 65 of the Companies Act 2016 that the promoter is personally liable to that contract since the company has not been formed and has no effect in the contract. It was stated that the pre-incorporation contract may be rectified after the company's incorporation. Once the company rectifies the contract, it is obliged to the contract's obligations. Promoter, that is mentioned before, is defined as who initiates the company incorporation and take necessary steps to accomplish this purpose. There are several duties that the promoter need to comply with. Promoter shall not make any profit in relation to the promotion of the company without the knowledge and the consent of the company. In this context, a promoter shall disclose all relevant information to the company to enable the company to make an informed decision. Disclosure is effective only if it is made to an independent board of directors or the general meeting of shareholders. Once the promoter has breached his duty, the company may rescind the contract or ratify the contract and recover the profit that has been made. That's all regarding the pre-incorporation contract. I shall pass the floor to BINTI.
Thank you, Yieng. So now I'm going to explain on the company incorporation procedure. First and foremost, according to the Companies Commission of Malaysia, the basic requirements to start a company is the requirement of approval of the company name from Companies Commission of Malaysia, and the requirement for a private company is at least one director who ordinarily resides in Malaysia by having a principal place of residence in Malaysia and one promoter. Or the second one is a public company which at least two directors who ordinarily reside in Malaysia by having a principal place of residence in Malaysia and minimum of one promoter. However, a person who wants to start up a company, the company's incorporation application must be using one of the two incorporation methods. Namely, firstly, the direct incorporation, which is the combination of name reservations and incorporation process, or the second one, which is the name reservations by submitting the incorporation applications within 30 days or such longer periods as the registrar may allow to a maximum of 180 days after the name is approved. Next is the incorporation information that needs to be completed is going to be as follows. The first incorporation information is the name of the company. So a person who wants to start up a company needs to determine the name of the company. The second one is the status of the company. It means that the promoter needs to decide if the company whether want to be a public or private company and what kind of business that which will be conducted by the company. However, it's important to note that a company shall not be formed for an unlawful purpose, which has been stipulated in Section 14, Clause 2 of the Companies Act 2016. The third one is the nature of the business. It means that what type of business that the person wishes to carry out, whether it's a food company or a technology company or even a medical manufacturer company, and etc. The following one is the address of the registered office. It means that the person who wants to start a company needs to determine the location of the company and which part of the company they wish to locate at, the office or even the company locations need to determine on that. Moving on is the business details is the name, identifications, nationality and the ordinary place of residence of every person who is to be a member of the company, and where any of these persons is a body corporate, the corporate name, place of incorporation, registration number, and the registered office of the body corporate. Moving on to the sixth information that need to be filled up is the complete details of the directors and promoters, such as the name, identification, nationality, and the principal place of residence of every person who is to be a director and promoter as well as secretary if any provided. And then the following one will be the declaration from directors and promoters, declaration of compliance from individuals responsible for incorporations, and some of the additional documents whenever required. And it is also important to note that the incorporation fee for a company limited by shares is 1,000 ringgit Malaysian, and for a company limited by guarantee is 3,000 ringgit Malaysian. So basically, there are 4 points that need to be jotted down. Firstly is only registration notice will be issued after all the process have been completed. Secondly is a certificate of the application will only be issued upon application made with the prescribed fee. And thirdly is company secretary must be appointed within 30 days after the incorporation of the company. And the fourth one is also the last one is company's constitution is a non-mandatory option for company limited by share. So that's basically of what I'm sharing on the process of an incorporations, and I shall now pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Moving on to effect of the incorporation of a company. A company comes into existence and acquires legal personality as a legal person upon registration. Generally, a company is known as an artificial legal person, and it has a separate legal personality from its members under the doctrine of separate legal entity. Therefore, it has full capacity to sue and be sued, to acquire property and to enter into any transactions in its own name in the virtue of Section 21, Subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2016. In this regard, the members only liable for the shares that they have paid for. Once the company is incorporated, the court will not look behind the corporate view to identify the individual shareholders in the company. There are several principles that have been summarized in Ben Hashem and Al-Shaif that are relied by the court to decide whether or not to leave the corporate view. In this context, it is not sufficient to justify lifting corporate view based on the ownership and control of a company and merely for the necessary of the interests of justice. To leave corporate view, there must be some impropriety which is linked to the use of the company structure to avoid liability. Besides that, there must be both control of the company by the wrongdoer and misuse of the company as per se to conceal the wrongdoing. In this regard, the company may be per se, even though it was not originally incorporated with deceptive intent. There are several statutory provisions in Malaysia that leave the corporate view. An example is Section 539 Subsection 3 of the Companies Act 2016, provide that an officer who fraudulently contract a debt without reasonable expectation on the ability of the company to pay the debt will be guilty of an offence. That's all from me regarding the effect of incorporation of the company. Ms. Wong, the floor is back to yours.
Thanks our four speakers for giving such an informative sharing. We can observe that the process of registering a company in Malaysia is definitely becoming easier with the simplified procedures of incorporating a company in Malaysia and the advance of being a business owner with separate liabilities from his business. which will provide a good start for a hopeful businessman to enter their business world.